Your brain is an organ that you can instruct to act as your most amazing ally. It's my habit, it's my brain, it's my pattern. I'm going to change it. The habit is more important than the intensity. One of the things that has been really important in my life that I think most people want but may not understand how to achieve, and that's everything. And I learned many, many years ago that you can have it all. Sometimes not at the same time, but you can have it all. And if you set up your values and you set up your processes and systems and your rituals, you can have it all. And sometimes that means having financial wealth. Other times it means having physical or emotional or spiritual wealth. But I look at my life in these facets. Is my well-being, my spiritual, my physical, my emotional well-being, the relationships with my wife, my children, my staff, my family. And I take these things extremely seriously from the perspective of it's important to me. And then financial wealth is a vehicle for me. That's all it is for me. You know, if all of my money was wiped out today and I was in debt $10 million, it wouldn't really matter to me. It's not who I am. It just tells me that I am playing the game of money either really well or poorly. And I've had, you know, some wonderful, amazing successes in the game of money, and I have lost a fortune in the game of money. Big shit. It's like just big deal. You know, I'll share a little story with you that may lend some insights to my thinking about money. Many years ago, I had invested in a company. And I put about $300,000 into the company. And the company did extremely well initially. And then I left my investment there. And for the most part, basically lost my investment. I just left. I was involved in business with some people that I loved and left my investment there and just walked away. And all I said was, take care of our clients. And I ended up basically walking away from the money. And people asked me, so like, how come you're not angry? Or how come it doesn't bother you that you lost $300,000? I said, because I know where it came from. See, it's in God's bank, right? Money is an idea. Money is energy that flows in and out of circulation. And so I learned many, many years ago, and Jim alluded to this a little bit, a while ago, there is something called the laws of compensation. And the law of compensation first asks, is there a need for your product or your service in the marketplace? Is there a need for your product or your service? And if the answer is yes, great. Then the next question is, how good is your product or service in the marketplace compared to other people who are offering the same product or service or similar product or service? And then the third part of the equation is, how good are you at marketing and selling your product or service at a local, national, or international basis? That determines how much money you're going to make. So you might have an amazing product or service, but if you don't know how to get it out there, you're not going to make a lot of wealth. And think about this. Why do some paintings sell for $50 or $100 million? Because they're rare. Because they're rare. There's value, perceived, imagined. It's rare. So what I learned a long time ago was, how do I make my abilities, my skills rare? If we can hand these out. What we did is I took the slides that I knew you would want to have. And you're going to get the video of all this anyway, so you'll see all of them. Some of you are in the danger zone in one or more areas of your life. Some of you are in the comfort zone or survival zone. Some of you are in the thrive zone. And if you know where you're at on a scale of 1 to 100, then you can move the needle through decision making and through conscious efforts. And the key is to make progress, not look for perfection. So if you don't manage and measure things, how will you know if you're making progress? So first and foremost, what I'd love you to do, since this is my form of a game, is work. And so we could have gamified this, but what I'd like you to do, just to get you started in the science of habits, the anatomy of a habit, which is really where I'm going to take you to, because every one of the results you are about to write on here of where you're at, and there's no right or wrong answer, and I don't need you to share it with anybody else. This is personal to you, okay? So be honest with yourself, and you will grade yourself where you're at. The number is irrelevant. All it is just says, here's where I'm at. Here's where I'm at. For those of you at home, do the same thing. So in the arena of financial wealth, based on where you think you should be or want to be, where are you on that spectrum, on that road? Are you at a 20, a 30, an 80, 100 right now? Makes no difference. In the area of your health, and I look at health as your physical health and your emotional health, all right? Physical health and emotional health, where are you in relationship to your goal or your ideal? Because these will give you just some indicators. Remember we talked about key performance indicators? These will give you some results indicators. And if you want a different result, when would now be a good time to change your strategy and your thinking? You guys are brilliant. Brilliant. So when would now be a good time to change? It starts off with a decision, right? And if you're committed to it, many of you know this story, that I shared about my first mentor saying, are you interested or are you committed? And when I asked him what the difference was, he said, if you're interested, you'll come up with excuses and stories and reasons why you can't or shouldn't. But if you're committed, you'll do whatever it takes. Great. If you want a great result, are you prepared to do whatever it takes? That's logical and moral and ethical, of course. And so take 5 minutes and just give yourself your true north. Are you in the thrive zone in some areas of your life and in the danger zone in others? Because if you're in the danger zone, now is a great time to get out of the danger zone and move into the survival zone and into the thrive zone. Now's the time. And then if you have a business, then where is it? And I know in every event that I speak at, whether there's 100 people or 10,000, there's people in every one of those zones. And it doesn't really matter what zone you're in. What matters is the decision you make to move yourself into the zone you want to move into. And based on what I've learned about each one of you over the last couple of days, there's not too many people here that I know want to be in the danger or survival zone. Right? It's too stressful there. You want to get into the success, significance, thrive zone, right? If you want to get into that zone, then you've got to play the game at that level. And you don't have to know all the steps right now. One of my friends, you may know Jack Canfield, he's got a great analogy and visual that he shared many years ago when we were talking, and then I think it's in one of his books as well. He said, imagine if you get into a car late at night, let's say here in San Diego, and all the street lights are out. And you get into a car, and you need to go to New York City, across the country, several thousand miles away. You turn on the headlights, you get in the car, and you start driving out of the driveway of this hotel, and you go about 300, 400 yards. And then when you get there, the headlights allow you to see another 300 or 400 yards. And when you get there, the headlights allow you to see another 300 or 400 yards. So you don't have to see the entire way, okay, step by step, street by street. You've got to choose the destination and then just go the 300 or 400 yards. And that's how you achieve your goals, okay? It's called micro or fractional goal achievement. You set the big goal, then you break it down into fractions so that you can achieve it in fractions. And every once in a while, you'll see a shortcut. You go, zzz, and you get over there. So is everybody filled? Okay. So what I can share with you is it's not your knowledge, it's not your skills that are the cause of the results that you have just put on that piece of paper. It is your habits. You and I are driven, okay, by habits. At the age of everybody in this room, no exceptions, 95% of how you think, what you do, is habitual. We are habitual machines. We think the same things, we feel the same things, we do the same things over and over and over again, even though we learn different things, thinking that we're changing. Change does not come from just gathering information. Change comes from applying information repeatedly over a period of time. And my goal has consistently been for myself, my family, and you, is how do we create change that's A, predictable, and B, lasting. All living organisms survive based on habitual patterns of behaviors that have been genetically or environmentally shown to increase survival and reduce short-term pain or discomfort. So we are wired to reduce short-term pain or discomfort and/or long-term pain or discomfort. We are genetically wired to save energy, and we are genetically wired to stay in our comfort zones. However, what we can do is create constructive habits through repetition. We can create constructive habits through what I mentioned yesterday, what I call deliberate conscious evolution or decision making. And so you can learn the anatomy of a habit, and it will help you develop constructive habits. It'll help you reduce or eliminate, get rid of destructive or disempowering habits so that you can make room for an empowering habit. And every single habit has a purpose, even destructive ones. Every single habit that you have serves its purpose somehow, somewhere. So not experiencing a painful part of your life and utilizing alcohol or drugs or any other mean to not experience an emotion can become a habit that serves you. So some people use food, some people use drugs, some people use alcohol, some people use sex, some people use gambling, some people use whatever as a destructive habit that is actually serving them from not dealing with certain things in their lives. And so all habits have an anatomy to them, all right? And so if you understand from a neuroscience perspective the anatomy of a habit, just about every single habit first has the trigger, okay, that instructs your brain to go into automatic mode. There's a trigger. There's always either an internal or an external trigger that I'll show you in just a moment. Then there's a routine or behavior, okay? Intrinsic is something that's happening internally. Extrinsic is something happening externally. Then there is a behavior, and I'm going to say positive or destructive or unpleasant, not negative. All right? There's a behavior. So trigger is the cue. The behavior is what you do or don't do. And then there is some kind of reward that's happening in the brain. And so every single habit, okay, has got a risk and reward to it. Every single habit's got a risk and reward to it. And when you repeat the rewards over and over and over again, and you release that dopamine in the brain, or the oxytocin, or the cortisol, oxytocin or dopamine, then your brain starts to get this feel-good drug, and guess what it wants more of? Feel-good drug. So I used to have an addiction to sugar. And what's interesting is not during the day, but after dinner, about an hour and a half after dinner, I would want something sweet. And no matter how much I exercised or worked out and ate well, which I did even before I was vegan, I had, my diet was near perfect, except for sugar. When I recognized the pattern and I recognized the anatomy of habits, I said, why don't I just apply everything I know about every other pattern I've broken to sugar? And within 3 weeks, I've not had, I think I may have had a couple of bites of a dessert in like 15, 16 months. And I would have dessert every single night, sometimes twice. And on vacation, sometimes 3 times in a day. If I had a choice of a killer meal or dessert, I'd have the dessert first and eat whatever I could fill in at the end after. Anybody else like that? Sugar for me was like an aphrodisiac. And what I found out recently, I didn't know it was this severe, is sugar is 8 times more addictive than cocaine. 8 times more addictive than cocaine. And so the science of changing habits, if you really want to get deep into your psyche, first you've got to identify the destructive habit and behavior that you currently take. So first you've just got to identify what's a destructive habit and behavior that you take. So the destructive habit for me, if I just use me as an example, was every night after I ate, about 90 minutes after I ate, my destructive habit, was I'd go and grab some frozen yogurt. I'm the only father in the world that would beg his kids to go get frozen yogurt every night. And I go like, Dad, again tonight? My kids is like, we don't want any frozen yogurt or ice cream. It's like the dessert, they're like, no more. And so you identify it first. You become aware. You recognize what is the destructive habit, and then what is the behavior that you take. Then you've got to identify what is your cue. What is the cue that's triggering the routine? And this just takes some mindful awareness. There is a cue. Even though it's a habit, the habit is unconscious, right? But can you become aware of your unconscious patterns? When Glenn was up here yesterday, he talked about the 4 levels of competence: unconscious incompetence, conscious incompetence, conscious competence, unconscious competence. Mark and I actually have developed a fundamental new level of thinking. It's conscious awareness of unconscious and conscious processes. You can, in a state of mindfulness and meditation, be the observer of your conscious and unconscious goals, dreams, desires, patterns. So the next level of mastery is you're consciously aware of your unconscious and conscious competencies and incompetencies. And that is really the level of mastery that meditation will allow you to attain. That mindfulness, being aware, being present. What am I feeling? What am I wanting to do? What am I doing? What's working? What's not working? What's happening so frequently at a habitual level that's working, and what's happening that's not working? See, you know why I take time to meditate and then to go on silent retreats? To quiet myself down. I've got a brain that goes. When I'm going, you'd ask my team, it's like I've got 2 speeds, high and off. And so it gives me a chance to just observe, listen, pay attention. And so you identify the cue, okay, that is triggering this. And you'll find that something internally or externally is the cue for you. So once you've identified that, okay, it could be a location. It could be a time of day. Like, I would never wake up thinking, I want dessert. So for me, it was a time of day, right around 90 minutes after I ate. Something triggered. And it wasn't even like right after I ate, unless I was at a restaurant. Then it would be like forced. But I'd still have a dessert, of course. So a location, a time of day, an emotional state. Are you feeling sad, then you eat? Are you feeling angry, then you shop? What's the cue that's triggering a destructive or unwanted habit? And if you pay close attention, you'll realize you and I are creatures of habit, but we don't have to participate in the habits when we are deliberate and make a conscious choice to break the pattern. So the presence of a certain person. My mother has been divorced from my father. Mark, for how many years now? 20 some odd? 25 years. If you mention my father's name, like a cat with her hair standing up, just mention his name. And she's still angry with him. She's taking the poison pill hoping he'll die. And it's like, her cue is his name. Her cue is a picture of him. Her cue is, they've been apart for 25 years. But she's gotten into this habitual pattern, an emotional state that's so destructive. He's off living a happy life. He's been remarried twice. He's 85 or 80, about 83, chasing young women and catching some. You know, his rules for life is every day above ground is a great day. You know, her rule for life is she wakes up and she's like, oh my God, another day. You know, and she's got certain cues and triggers. And so other people. So what you want to find, and this is going to take mindfulness. This is going to take you making a decision to be aware and make a decision to release through your awareness and through deliberate conscious choices and evolution of yourself, of your soul and your spirit. Or you find the immediate or preceding action or thought. And when you make a decision, you give your brain the instruction to give you this information, then it will do that for you. Your brain is your servant. It's not your leader. Your brain is an organ that you can instruct to act as your most amazing ally. And you could tell it what you want it to do or not do. And there's a perfect example when you're in a state of meditation and you've got this monkey mind. Tell your brain, hey, monkey mind, you know what? Stop, release, let go. I'm sitting here no matter what you want to do, no matter what pattern you throw into my brain because of the habituated pattern of not being able to calm my own brain. It's like an elephant. You ever see the picture of the elephant and the flea on top? The elephant is representative of your unconscious mind. The flea is representative of your conscious mind. It's like the flea trying to tell the elephant where to go. However, if you take an elephant when it's a baby and you put, a chain around its ankle and you put a stake in the ground, the elephant will try to move and lacerate its legs until it bleeds and creates, these bruises on the elephant's leg. When it becomes an adult, you can just put a little string around with a small little wood stake in the ground. The elephant won't move from that spot unless there's a fire. That's what your brain is like. That's what your habits are like. They are controlling your life, and you've got to reclaim that power and saying, it's my habit, it's my brain, it's my pattern. I'm going to change it. So again, there's the cue, the trigger, intrinsic or extrinsic. And then there's the reward that you're getting. So you might be getting a temporary reward. You might be getting a longer-term reward. And the question is that reward constructive or destructive to you? And so what are the rewards you're attaining? And then what you want to do is identify the real hidden reasons why you're maintaining that habit. Okay, so things like I'm maintaining that habit because it's preventing me from dealing with my real core pain. An unresolved trauma, an unresolved emotional issue, an unresolved something. It could be that because of that pattern, you feel appreciated or loved. There is a hidden reason why you continue that pattern. If you're in a destructive relationship for month after month, year after year, decade after decade, there is a hidden reward associated with that allowing. And we are great at hiding from our real core emotional pains. We are great at protecting ourselves. Remember what our brain is geared towards doing? Keeping us alive. Second most important thing is making sure that we avoid anything that may hurt us, real or imagined. And third thing that it does is make sure that our outside world matches our internal map of reality. Make sure that our outside world matches our internal map of reality. And so if we're involved in a relationship or in a behavior, okay, what we're basically agreeing to is we are agreeing to allowing the internal map of our reality to exist and to be the way it is. If you want to change your reality, change the map first. Change the map first, because the map is not the territory. Does that make sense? If you took a map of San Diego and you start driving around, the map and the territory wouldn't match up. We all have our own internal maps of reality. So what are the hidden reasons? You don't like conflict and how it makes you feel. I had a dialogue with a dear friend of mine recently who was having an interesting emotion around a behavior that his wife was engaging in. But because he didn't want the conflict, he's accepting the behavior over and over and over again. That's habitual, for as long as I've known him. The other thing that your behavior and the hidden reason is you may feel significant. I have a friend of mine, it's actually a friend of my wife, and she's been involved in a relationship that she's been miserable in for years, and so has her husband. And she's just a shopaholic. When she goes and shops, she feels significant because she doesn't feel significant in her relationship. And she also does it to piss him off. And now they're going through a very, very challenging divorce. And so what I want you to really understand is all of this is normal. It's not to make you feel bad. It's to make you aware. And the more real you get, the more honest you get, the more you upgrade your knowledge, which we're giving you right now, and giving you some skills and some tools to have in your arsenal, the easier it becomes for you to be authentic with yourself. The easier it becomes for you to feel whole. And so step number 5 and 6 is evaluate the validity of the hidden reasons. Evaluate the validity of the hidden reasons. Do I really feel significant when I do this? Or do I feel significant for a short period of time? Do I really feel significant? Look at the reasons and evaluate them. And this just takes being mindful. Write it down. Look at it. And ask yourself, is there another way for me to achieve that same emotional need that I have in order to do life? And then the 6th part is reframe the ones that are exaggerated or untrue. Reframe them. A reframe is just taking a sentence or an emotion and either looking at it from a different angle or saying it in a different way so that you don't reinforce the neurological pattern around that action, emotion, or feeling. So this is your current decision-making systems and your neural circuits. So your decisions now are being governed by an unconscious habitual system that's associated by past rewards. Past rewards. And then your conscious goal-oriented desires are based on anticipation of a future reward. So you've got a reward system that's pulling you back into the past, and the polar opposite reward system is moving you towards the future in anticipation of a reward. You can imagine being at the destination of where you want to get to, and you could release the reward system, get involved, get your reward system involved in your brain, and use that as your fuel. Why do I suggest, and you'll see some of the rituals I'm going to share with you in just a little bit, focusing on your goals, what you want, living in them as if they're real right now, emotionalize them right now, because as soon as you do that, and you release the neurochemicals, okay, in your brain, you release the reward system in the brain, you start to activate the reward system in the brain, and if you can live there long enough, you can create a neural pattern right there that'll get you to make that the new habit, and therefore give you the unconscious reward that you want in the future and in the present. Because yours and my brain doesn't know the difference between something real or imagined. Think about this. Let's enter one of your memory systems and circuits right now. How many of you, and at home also, if I had a chalkboard here right now, how many of you, if I took my fingers and I just went like, how many of you felt that without me even saying the word? Okay, half the audience felt that. I didn't say anything. Like how did you feel something? I'm standing here on stage, people are watching there, and some of them felt it. How did you feel that? Well, you already anticipated, okay, the sound, the vibration, and a release of neurotransmitters and chemicals in your brain were released, causing the emotion. A replay of the past. So that tells me that the chalk that I could just go on the board just makes you, see? Some of you are getting angry now. What if I did it a third time? For every one of us, something triggers those automatic emotions. Those are the cues, the triggers for you. That's what we're talking about. Could you unlearn to feel that way? Absolutely you could. You could evaluate, you could reframe it. You can become aware. The cue that I just gave would just make the hands, gave you a visual of a chalkboard, then just pretended to do this. I'm not going to do it again, but just I pretend to do that. I had to. And so what you want to really start to think about is to adopt some new habits, all right? And so what you want to do is you want to start to carry out a new behavior that stimulates the reward and memory system in your brain. And you can do that either through physical activity, do the behavior, do the habit, and you can also reinforce it through mental conditioning. I could imagine, visualize the new habit. I can imagine and visualize the behavior. I can imagine and visualize the reward. And yours and my brain doesn't know the difference between something real or imagined. And if I do that over and over and over again, I can start to develop a new neural pathway that causes the emotion that I want. And if I do that enough times and with intensity and repeat it over a period of time, it becomes automatic. Therefore, automaticity, a new habit. How do you erase it? Okay? So I'll get to that in just a moment. You can't erase an old habit, okay? You can't erase old habits because the neural pathway exists. All right? However, when you start to develop a new habit, the pathway, okay, and the neurons that were firing actually slow down the firing rate, and the new habit takes over. But there is a challenge with that, which I'll talk about in just a moment. All right? So you want to start the new pattern, the new behavior. Okay? And I'll share that with you. All right? And so as you learn and adopt a new habit and repeat it over and over and over again, your effort initially is a conscious effort. But over 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 80 days, 100 days, 200 days, that behavior becomes more permanent than the old behavior. So the keystone habits that you develop are your cornerstone habits. Okay, keystone habits are key habits that affect other habits. So food, for example, affects your entire physiology. It affects your emotional system. It affects every part of who you are. Meditation affects every part of your being. And what I have found is every positive, constructive habits helps you develop other positive, constructive habits. And every negative, destructive habits ties together to other negative, destructive habits. And so if you can develop a few corner keystone habits, they will help spread to all your other habits. And so whether, people ask me, do you always feel great when you work out? And one of the reasons that my answer is no is because I've got severe sleep apnea. So I sleep with a CPAP machine. And some mornings I wake up and I'm exhausted. But I have my trainer at my house at 7:30 no matter what. And people ask me, what do you do on those days? I said, I drag my ass out of bed, I get to my home gym, and even if I do 20 or 30% of my normal workout, the habit is more important to me than the intensity. Just remember that. The habit is more important than the intensity. Because I understand that habits drive my life. If I can get the habit of 1 minute, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it is, if I can develop that habit, then the days that are great, I'll be able to work out extremely well. The days that aren't, I'll do 20%, 10%, 15%. And she feels bad sometimes because I pay her no matter what. But I want to get into the gym because the habit is more important than the intensity. And here's a law that you've got to understand when you're dealing with habits. Last in, first out. Last in, first out. So the last habit that you put in is the first habit you will get rid of. Last in, first out. LIFO. Okay? And so if you're developing a new habit, it's the easiest one to break. That's why New Year's resolutions are a waste of time. It's the last in, first out, because people don't set themselves up to win with understanding habits, keystone habits, understanding how to interrupt the pattern, how to change the behavior. All right, so options for changing the behavior. Here is what the latest research is showing about habits. If you understand the cue, the trigger, you understand the habit, and you understand the reward, all you have to do is change the behavior, even though you've got the cue. Change the behavior long enough, you'll still get the reward because you'll do something different. If you change the behavior long enough, that's all you really need to be concerned with. So if there is a behavior and you're aware of the cue and you're aware of the reward, if you change just the middle piece, keep the bookends, the cue and the reward, change the behavior through a little walk instead of coffee. So after I gave up sugar, I used to go to the gym. I would go downstairs and I would have a double espresso, especially the days when I was just tired because I didn't sleep well. And I got into having a double espresso. I never drank coffee. And they're like, why am I having a double espresso? I said, well, because I think it's giving me some energy. And I think it's giving me some, and I said, like, I don't want to drink double espressos all the time. And so I changed the habit. So I'd go downstairs, and the first couple of days I was like, nope, let's go for a little walk around the pool. So I just walked outside, went around the pool 2-3 times, and within 3-4 days, I haven't had a cup of coffee since the day I made the decision. So I just changed the behavior long enough to interrupt the pattern, and I haven't had a coffee in, I think, 6 months now. I am an all or nothing person, yes. And so if you feel like, grabbing a cigarette, all right, do some writing instead. Interrupt the pattern, the behavior. If you do it for a week, then 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, you'll be able to interrupt the pattern long enough, okay? If you drink too much, and you go to the bar all the time, go to the library instead. Interrupt the pattern. Understand the cue. As soon as you feel the cue, interrupt the pattern, still get a great reward. All right? Donate $5 instead of spending money on something you don't need. You see, you're not buying something or spending money to make you feel good. And then another way that I fulfill my highest values of contribution is this. I write, I share, I get in the community, I get on our Facebook fan page, and I just contribute. My thoughts, ideas, whatever I can contribute to the world. And then, while I am doing my meditation, I visualize and emotionalize my goals for 5 minutes. So I have my goals, I've got them laminated, and I've got them for health, wealth, relationships, career, business, and I've got them laminated, usually in my car, I've got them in my briefcase, I've got them in my office, I've got them in my home, and I cognitively prime my brain. Every day, I give my brain instruction, this is what I want you to focus on. This is the beliefs that I want you to have. These are the habits required to achieve this goal. And I get emotionally charged with that vision and that goal. And then let it go. If I've plugged in, tuned in, paid attention with the right intention, then I don't have to have any tension whatsoever to that. And if I've created my plan of what needs to be done, if you come to my home gym, you're going to see the goal. You're going to see a picture of the body that I want. You're going to see what the focus is for the month. You're going to see the strategic plan of what I'm doing every day. You're going to see my measurement of where I'm at in relationship to the goal, and you're going to see one thing that says the promise, or it says why. And for my physical health, my big why, how many of you have been to my home and have seen it? Jastiana, you just saw it, and Ivan just saw it. A few years ago, I was skiing with my sons, Keenan and Noah, in Colorado. And Keenan went back into the house, and Noah was on the chairlift with me. It was a beautiful spring day. It was spring break, kids' spring break. We took him to ski. And Noah looked at me. He was 15 years old. He says, Dad, I absolutely love spending time with you, and thank you so much for introducing Keenan and I to skiing and boarding. He says, both of us have talked about how much we love doing this. And I was just like filled with so much love and like, oh God, this is like, that's the best. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? I'm going to make you a promise right now. I said, I'm going to get myself in the best shape of my adult life so that I could take your children, he was 15, that I will take and teach your children how to ski or board like I did you and Keenan. And on my vision board for my health, it says why, and the only thing it says underneath that is the promise. That's my cue. That's my trigger to the story I just told you. And every day when I walk in the gym and I look at my vision board before I work out, and I look at the promise, I get my ass and I do what I need to do. Because sometime in the next 20 to 30 years, I hope, my sons will have children. And I want to fulfill that promise. And I want to fulfill it because I want to show them when I make a decision, I mean it. No matter how much sugar, I was eating, I'm going to give it up. And you are more important than any destructive habit I have. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Hey, this is John, and if you liked that video, watch the next video because it is packed with things that you can do right now to achieve success way faster than ever before.